Hey friends, Rick from BCW Supplies inviting you to join me as I travel across the United States visiting with local hobby stores and having a conversation with them. From gaming stores to comic shops to sports collectibles and more. We will take a look at the origins up to the present day events of the store, and if we're lucky, maybe a glimpse into the future as BCW shines the spotlight on their store and their stories. So please join me as we hit the road for the BCW Spotlight. Hey friends, Rick from BCW Supplies back again with another BCW Spotlight. This time we're in Plano, Texas at Madness Games and Comics, and we're joined by Chris, the owner. Chris, thank you so much for joining us for this BCW Spotlight and taking time out of your busy schedule to allow us to be here.
Absolutely, glad to.
I want to say first and foremost, as everybody got to see in the video package before this is a travel destination. This is absolutely amazing. I have never seen a store like this before, and it begs me to ask you, how did you get started in comics and gaming as a youth? Where did that come from?
So as far from the standpoint of how the hell did this happen?
Well, how did you get interested in this to begin with? Then we'll cover how did this happen.
I never collected anything as a kid other than Star Wars toys. In high school, a couple buddies were really into comics. Just after high school, I opened up a comic book store, October of '92. Lasted less than a year. And then I spent the rest of the '90s becoming an absolute expert in fucking it up.
Okay.
And so I mapped out every conceivable way I could come up with to make it happen. I promised myself I would do it one more time and then that's it. There's about 10 million things that occurred during that time span. But in 2001, just after 9/11, I moved from Indiana to Texas. My now business partner had moved here in December of '99 and opened a store from California to Texas. I got to know him. Long story short, as of 2003, we've been partners, and here we are.
That's amazing.
So that's about the most concise I could come up with.
Well, and I know we talked a little bit before this about how convoluted that journey was.
Oh, yeah.
And it is an impressive story from the inside as far as how all of this came to be. Now, this was not the first Madness location, nor the only Madness location at a point in time. But this is the flagship for Madness.
Yeah, this is the only Madness Games and Comics right now.
Right.
But in December '99, my business partner opened a store called Space Madness. In 2002, opened a second store with a big land center, called it Madness Games and Comics. He and I partnered up in 2002, officially in 2003. I bought an additional store, incorporated them. At one point, we had 3 stores and 2 other retail outlets, right? 2 other retail outlets in the area.
Okay.
Easiest way. So 5 locations at max.
Wow. And so
plus shows and conventions and all that stuff, which we don't do any of anymore.
Well, this is
I
a
mean,
show
before the apocalypse, we didn't do that shit anymore.
Before the year that should not be mentioned, like Lord Voldemort. But so this you don't have to do conventions. This is a convention. Like I'm gonna. If you are in nerd culture, if you're in gaming, puzzles, board gaming, role playing, collectible card games, this is a store, and I'm looking at you, watcher, this is a store to come to. This is worth the travel. This is definitely worth it. There is something here for everybody, and that just speaks volumes to what you put together.
It was the objective. It was, and prior to this, we built this location in 2013. Prior to that, it was still the objective, even when we were progressively back in time smaller and smaller, but was to carry as much as we could. There were times in the location or locations we had, we defied physics with how much product we could fit into a store. And so we kept outgrowing stores.
Okay.
Like you don't open a store and then go, things are going well, let's move and make a bigger store and hope to fill it in. No, we did it the other way. We overfilled every store and then went, shit, we need a bigger one because we don't have room for everything, right? So we moved into a bigger space and it started out full, right? And then we overfilled it and moved again, right? And so and that's what we did here. The only time in our entire history that I overexpanded was when I built this, because we went from 5,300 square feet to 23,000. Okay, so that's different, right? So that final leap was a big all or nothing, right? And so whatever. But the goal was to build, I didn't go after e-commerce for all those years. And in 2020, during the apocalypse, I suffered greatly for that because I was not infrastructured for any meaningful amount of e-commerce.
Right.
Prior to that and after that, I'm doing, my business model was all about in-store.
Yeah.
And still is. So, yeah, for 15 months, like we almost hit extinction. And, yeah.
Wow. I mean, the experience is shopping in the store. The experience is coming in here and finding things that you did not know that you desperately needed. You came in, like you were telling me a story about somebody coming in that was into miniatures and buying a model and never bought a statue before.
Yeah.
They came in for specifically one thing and then they saw a statue that they just had to have. And
a $1,500 life-size statue.
and they're like, and give me one of those. Like, that is, but
sometimes it'll happen. You just don't know. And like we don't limit the customers by categorizing them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like my people that work the store learn the customers and take care of them in first name basis, and they're very hands-on and direct with with whatever their needs are and taking care of them and respecting them and all that. In the larger scope, I don't I don't limit my customers. Well, you only like this, so that's all I'm going to carry. I always carry tertiary stuff, and always have, for every dimension of the business, going back 15 years, 18 years, right? If one thing sells, that means there's 3 other things that might sell. So I'm going to pick 2 of them, right? And see if either one do. And if they don't, pull the ripcord and move on, right? But if they do, then that tells me that something else is sellable. And if that does, then there's a corollary to something else being sellable, right? And so years ago, in the early 2000s, the concept of a full comic book store and a full game store, right? The hybrid business model, there were only a handful of us in the country that really did it full force. And both sides of the industries, the game side and the comic side, looked down on us as we polluted the waters with that other stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, you're all missing the fucking point here.
Right.
So,
but now you look at it and this is the standard. Like, this is the pinnacle, not even the standard.
I don't know about pinnacle. I would say, yeah, there's, everyone should look to do exactly what I did. Not by mimicking me, but by finding their own truth in what I built and developed over the years. And so for their market, for their customers, for their demographic, whatever.
Right.
But to go back to it conceptually, we don't limit the customers. We provide options to the customers. The customers, tell us what they want, right? And I am subservient to the business itself. I don't dictate to the business what products will and won't sell. The business tells me, and I pay attention.
And that's an amazing perception to have, or perspective rather, sorry, to have on this, is I love science fiction. I mean, I have read so many books that really just, I'm a science fiction kind of person. When it came to miniature wargaming, I was very much Warhammer 40K,
yeah.
sci-fi,
Right.
you know, but I also like Magic. I also like role-playing, and I love the fact that I can come in here and find things for small, nerdy things that I like sci-fi wise. I can find stuff that it scratches my collectible card game needs. You've got puzzles, you've got board games, you've got role-playing systems. I think you have all of them that are available.
Yeah, and anymore, who knows? But
right, but that's my thing is that.
good luck defining that.
But it's that I can scratch all my passions in one place. And you're right, most stores that I go to this is my miniature wargaming store. They stock miniature stuff, and I've got to go somewhere else for other stuff. And here,
there's
it's
a lot
all
of
in one.
give and take to that. So I mean, you know, it's no different than D&D characters, right? You can have a specialty class, or you can have a bard, right? You can have a court jester, or you can, you know what I mean, whatever. Right, and so there's gives and takes to that, right?
Right.
You know, some could argue we're not the store expert in any one field, but we go by shock and awe. So whatever.
Yeah, I'm in shock and awe.
We're doing okay, you know, right?
Yeah, I'd say you've got it covered a little. It's but again,
not talking about last year. You know.
Right, but last year was an anomaly, and this year.
I would have preferred the zombie apocalypse to what happened last year. I think we'd have come out of it better.
You'd have a whole new line of stuff and customers to sell to. Yeah. So how do people plug in with Madness? Obviously, being here is the experience. So where can people find information about Madness to plan the trip?
The primary is the website and Facebook. So Facebook/Madness Games.
Okay.
And then madnessgames.com.
Okay.
As far as store info, pics, hours, you know, the normal stuff. Again, we still, to this day, do not do any substantive amount of e-commerce. There's a lot of reasons, but that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Well, I was about to tell my grandmother joke.
No. But I think the major reason why that is because I can't stress this enough. Being in the store is an experience. And you told me off camera, that's what you were going for. To experience Madness, you've got to walk through the door.
I mean, I built and designed the store and I tweak it every day as far as merchandising, product, blah, 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 along with all my managers, my general manager in particular. But it's the customers that made Madness what it is. It's my staff, my floor staff, the ones that are out here every day. I'm just the choreographer, you know. I'm not Paula Abdul.
You had me fooled for a minute, but I guess the truth is out. No, we're good. So now, I cannot fathom what the future could hold for you, but I do want to ask the loaded question as we kind of bring this to a conclusion here. 2 to 3 years down the road, where do you want to see Madness Games and Comics?
Alive?
Well, besides the obvious.
I've worked very, very hard to not predetermine outcomes, to not forecast, to not predict, to not aim for X amount of goalposts or whatever. So I don't limit ourselves to where we're going to be. That's how we got here. And the agility of never being stuck to a path, right? Especially after last year, I think is more important than ever. So I don't know.
Well, that is a very fair and honest answer, which I appreciate. And really, I can't wait to come back in a couple years to see what's going to be new.
Wackadoodle stuff for somebody.
Yeah. And again, hats off to you. A beautiful store, an amazing store, a one-of-a-kind store. The sheer size, volume, I can't capture it all on the camera. Dear customer, dear viewer, make the trip out here. You will not be disappointed. All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for setting time aside for us and for giving us a little peek into the history of madness. And I want to remind you folks watching this that when it comes to protecting, storing, or displaying your hobbies or collectibles, BCW has you covered.